Dr. Carol Burrs and Erskine Oglesby are members of the City Council and have shepherded into existence a string of words that stretch across 9 pages of type. And if you have a stapler handy, you can staple to that 9 pages a series of 22 pages more of 80 proofs, incidents in which officers, some of them writing in all capital letters, tell about encounters with the poor. Those are poor people whom are a bit of trouble. They're obstreperous, they're noisy, they're in traffic, they're begging for money. They may have problems. They're not in order, right? They're subject to, every one of them, subject to this disorderly conduct statute, which is unconstitutionally vague. It's unconstitutional because it's hard to know when you're in keeping with its provisions. There are 5 provisions, and at least 2 are incomprehensible. It's not, you can't tell whether you're in violation or not. And that's a throwaway statute used by cops regularly to harass people and as a bargaining chip in the inevitable plea bargaining arrangement that the state has created for us. We have a machine that grinds people to powder and puts blots on the records of thousands and thousands of people who are innocent of any crime in Hamilton County and Chattanooga because of the state. The state prosecutes, but the state also offers relief, and that is the public defender's office. If you're poor, which many of these people are, it will advise you not to go to trial and plead guilty and stay out of trouble, and we'll blot it off your record or what have you. There are all kinds of shades of benefit that you can get by not insisting on your rights. And the city and the county offering you to not just don't assert your rights. Just don't assert your rights for a trial, and we can make this go away. We can solve the problem, right? Don't have to take time to go time off from work. You don't have to inconvenience yourself by showing up for this hearing and that hearing. We'll make it easy for you. This, of course, is the state's game. It is a game spreading blight, spreading a kind of cancer upon the people, the cancer of the state's embrace and the state's grace, right? The state, in accepting your plea bargain, has granted you a grace, and you now are in trouble forever because that's on your record, and you don't know really how to get rid of it. There is an expungement process in the law, but that's expensive, and you may not have been involved in a case that had that. So here we have people who are panhandling, and they are subject to a proposal running into pages and pages from these 2 courageous and faithful, very faithful city council members who are representing their constituents, who are trying to bring relief to constituents who have complained, right? The constituents, shopkeepers mostly, and some others are kind of offended by poor people. They don't want to have to brush them off. They don't want to have to use any firm words with poor people who are a bit bold, right? They don't want to have to raise their voice and say, "Sir, please step aside." And the answer is no. They don't want to have to do that. They don't want to have to be masculine and say, "Sir, stand aside. I'm walking down the sidewalk. Get out of my way, please." I mean, that's a little bit rude, but I mean, if this beggar is coming up to you and asking for money and is mumbling and breathing on you and kind of standing in your way, well, you need to be firm, right? To save people from having to do that, to make sure that Chattanoogans don't have to speak to poor people in anything but a measured, calm, and quiet voice. These 2 council members have proposed a bill. Okay, it's called an ordinance that in the municipal corporation has the same effect as law. Right, it is a law, as it were, from the General Assembly. The same effect, the same power as a real law we have in Chattanooga. Enforceable by the corporation mall cops, that is to say the CPD, and that those are ordinances and they have the force of law. And so Burrs and Oglesby, the 2 council members, are proposing this very thing to effectively ban panhandling, not just in the touristy areas where you have people from other states. You have Yankees coming down to leisure, wanting to enjoy the aquarium and maybe attend an event at the Bessie Smith Hall or enjoy a band some summer evening. down at the revived Miller Plaza, but everywhere. This ban would go everywhere, and it's based on the skimpiest of information. It's very, very skimpy. I want you to know that. We have big numbers that are thrown out in the ordinance, but the numbers, if you just look at them, they get faded. They sort of fade on the page, even though they're written in bold type, right? Someone put the bold button on these sentences on page one of the Panhandle Ordinance. I'm holding it up here for you to see. If you're looking at us live on Facebook, you'll see the letters, of course, Panhandle across the top of my page backwards. If you're on YouTube at New York Radio, YouTube, you'll see it correct. But this is my working copy of the ordinance. And the data at the bottom there starts in bold type. Even though it's bold, when you really look at the numbers, they sort of fade, right? They sort of fade into like 80%, right? Or 60%. They're kind of gray. They go gray on you, and they're not bold and they're not black. Now, the threat is that we had over a 3-year period involving 1,168 days. There were 457 calls. Now, wow, there were 457 panhandling events. And that's what we think, right? But just don't just stop there, right? So these are panhandling calls, but as you read on, the data unravels. Okay, it unravels in a description of what those numbers. They unravel with a description of what those numbers represent. They represent all kinds of calls, not just calls of someone begging money from someone else. That's a panhandling encounter, right? These encounters are described as having occurred among panhandlers, right? The type of people, at least, who would beg. These are not necessarily panhandling calls. What kind of calls are they? Well, they are trespassing calls. They are drug violation calls. They are disorderly conduct calls, drunkenness calls, assaults. Some of these are assaults, suicide attempts, and other calls that are referred as miscellaneous or other, and which resulted in contact for social services. And it's about one call of this kind every 2.5 days. So if you spread out, if you assume that there's one, think about it. I'll let you do the math. You, my listener here on the David Tula Show, you do the math. If you have these other types of cases, not an aggressive panhandling case, right? It doesn't even say that, but you have trespassing, drug violations, disorderly conduct, drunkenness, assault, suicide attempts, and then these. So let's say there's 7 categories. So it's not just one panhandling call every 2.5 days. It's one panhandling call every 14 days. Okay, that's 2 times 7, so maybe one every 18 days. So you have one actual panhandling call, if panhandling is the actual cause of the police call, one every 18 days. That's not very many, is it? I mean, does it seem like a lot to you? So you have 1,168 days, 457 calls. And you spread that few calls, one panhandler call, or one call against a panhandler every 2.5 days, or one call against an actual panhandling incident where the thing in view by the cop is an aggressive panhandle. That could be one every 20 days. Let's just be generous and say one every 20 days. It could be one every 30 or 40. We don't know that number, and I'm just sort of guessing at it. You have very, very few incidents. And then think about the number of people who live in the city, about 178,000. In the county, we have a population of about 354,000. And in the MSA, the Metropolitan Statistical Area, we have about 500,000, 528,000 by my quick review. So if you have one person in 775 people had an encounter in a 3-year period. So that would be, okay, again, if you break the numbers down, that would be one person in 775 people roughly having had an encounter in a 3-year period. Or that would be one person in 2,300 period having had an encounter in a 1-year period.
Connects you with top-rated pros who have financial background checks. Plus, Home Advisors true to get a fair price by showing you the cost of similar jobs in your area.
And so what we have my left hand doesn't know what my right hand is doing. Sorry. So we have one person in 2,300 roughly having had an encounter in a 1-year period. And then these encounters are not even panhandling encounters where the threat or the offense is an actual incident of begging for alms. Okay, so you have a very diffuse very diffuse body of data, and it's marshaled to look impressive. But the argument is the argument against the passage of this ordinance is in the ordinance itself, in the whereases, and that's where this information appears in the whereases, which would show if the council were fearful enough to adopt it, their rationale. The ordinance makes some obsequy, some obeisance, if you will, to First Amendment rights, and here is perhaps another area of grief in it. Why do we want to criminalize private interactions among private parties? Do we want to have one more instance where a corporation of some kind or other regulates activity among private people or among individual men and women, criminalizing some aspects of that, criminalizing certain forms and certain flavors of that? That's what the ordinance does. It criminalizes a private interaction among private parties, not acting in any corporate capacity, not doing anything that affects the public interest. Though, and I say that though the ordinance itself claims that there is a public interest in view, where on page 3 it says, whereas in promulgating this ordinance, the city council seeks to impose regulations that are narrowly tailored to serve the aforementioned significant governmental area interest in all areas of the city, and to regulate certain behavior to preserve the public order. Well, what we have here are not, we don't have people who are committing crimes, right? These are not common law crimes. There is the state statute banning aggressive panhandling is close to a common law crime because it is close to the idea of assault. Assault and battery is when someone reaches at you or charges at you or swings at you a weapon or aims a weapon at you, and you have the fear of your personal safety. That's the assault. The battery is the actual striking of your person by that other party. So assault and battery often go together, and so that's already covered. That's a common law offense. It's an offense under God and in common law, and that's repeated in the statute and in the Tennessee aggressive panhandling statute. And there, it is not allowed. It is criminalized to beg from someone and then touch that person or hit that person. Okay, so that's a kind of assault where the encounter is for begging. The mark, that is to say, the victim, is touched in some way or handled by the mendicant, the beggar. That is an offense, and I'd say that's going a bit too far, but it's close to the common law standard, and that's enforceable. That's enforceable in the city anyway, and by practice, city cops enforce that law. Though I'd say they don't have statutory authority to do it. Only the sheriff, Jim Hammond, has that authority in the county, but by professional deference, as he tells me in an interview, he lets the city enforce that law. Though it's not illegal. Can I ask him? I said, does Mayor Burke's David Roddy enforce those statutes by law or by personal regard, your personal regard and professional courtesy? And it was B. The answer was B. So Jim Hammond alone has the legal authority, but practically the city would be enforcing that as it has many other forms of the Tennessee Code annotated. Again, apart from lawful authority, but in practice, that's what's been happening. So we'll have these actions of enforcement by the city officer against these individuals who are aggressive in their panhandling. What do we need to make of this argument? What is Carol Burrs is a Democrat. She's a liberal. Why is she involved in this? That's what I don't understand. Now, I don't know a lot about Erskine Oglesby, but I believe he's a Christian man. And I have the impression from what I read in the time of his campaign that he's a member of the Reformed Baptist Church, the Primitive Baptist Church, where I visited and worshiped with those Christian people one time. And I believe he's a member there. So he has a Christian perspective with a Reformed flavor, which again is very favorable to him. And the Reformed faith holding as its main doctrine the sovereignty of God, the absolute sovereignty of God and his absolute government of humankind. That's what's in view in that high end of Christianity. What is he involved in this bill for? And you can call me anytime. The number is 800-8949, and someone has written that number down. Again, it's 800-8949, and has called me and has something to offer.
David, Mike Steele, I had to call because, I mean, you're really surprised that a Democrat sponsored this bill. I'd be surprised if it wasn't a Democrat. They're socialists, which means it's government control over production and distribution. Of course it was a Democrat. They want to control everything. I feel sorry for any kids that grow up in a family with Democrats. I'm sure the dad beats the kids and the mom is a controlling mother. Democrats want to control everything. They want to be able, listen, if we're up to most Democrats, they would steal 100% of what you earn and let you keep a little bit what they think you deserve. The Democratic Party is a socialist party, which is government control over production and distribution. Of course they want to control your behavior. That's the tenets of the entire party. You know, they go so far as in their platform say it's okay to murder an unborn baby. Hey, we're controlling your behavior again. Hey, abortionist. Hey, doctor, you can kill that unborn kid. You know, listen, I guarantee you, I'm going to throw something out here. I guarantee you that if there were a law passed saying you can kill your kid up until a year after it was born, a Democrat would have sponsored it. Hey, you know, the kid still doesn't have any rights. You know that. They're a year old. You can still kill them if you don't want them.
Well, I think the Democrats have they believe in the sort of messianic state. They believe in the mommy state, and their mommy is a well, you might say a cop with an apron on, and the Republican savior is a cop with a gun.
The Republicans are not much better, and 80 to 90% of the Republicans are exactly the same.
They're conservative
so I just mentioned Democrats because the Republicans don't have in their platform yet it's okay to kill your unborn baby. But yeah, they're both for the nanny state. Now, a true conservative wants to conserve the Bible, the Constitution, and they want to conserve the rule of law. And you don't see, listen, David, I guarantee you, if you had a Republican on and I fed you 5 questions, you'd find that 99% of them are socialists. That's the bottom line. So, you know, Republicans are disgusting. Democrats are repulsive. And I'm not talking about the people. People vote Republican and Democrat based on the families they were raised in. I'm talking about the party people, the politicians. The people just, you know, what other choices do you have? You know, you're not going to get the libertarian elected. You know, we're stuck with a 2-party corrupt system. You know, most people will say, oh, I have to vote for him because who else do I have to vote for? So we're not talking about the people. We're talking about the party and the politics of the party.
Right. Well, we have with thanks, Mike. We have with the Republican and Democrat duopoly, we have a kind of a false choice. We would be much more advantaged, I think, in law and in our culture if we had maybe a more parliamentarian system where there were many parties and the numerous parties would reflect the constituencies of the people, the different interests of the people. You know, you have your union people, you have your libertarians, you have your nanny state Democrat types, you have your police state types in the Republican Party. That there would be a party that would reflect that. You would have your commercial government types that would be reflecting industry and insurance, risk management, and the like. And you would have parties that reflect their members. We don't have that. We have this sort of oversimplified 2-party system, and we can't. I think we have to find a way here on the David Tula Show to think how can we work around that. And in one area, I think administrative notice that would prevent abuse of minorities and immigrants and the poor is a step. But how can we replicate that program, which is it's a kind of a 10-year program, before there'll be some real changes? It'll take a few lawsuits, I think, against state actors at the lowest level. That would be at the officer level. The officer who's not been notified, but has been legally notified, is in a pickle because he's personally liable for offending the traveler whom he is arrested for being involved as a traveler, though that person is not involved in transportation or in the for-profit use of the road. So that kind of case, and we'll have Black people involved in those instances of litigation, tort claims, Hispanics, and some Constitution-minded people who know their rights, who want to assert their rights, even though the High Court has ruled that there is no distinction. So we can have these actions at the local level, and probably, I'd say probably in Chancery. That probably would be where they'd have to be filed, because notice has been given. So there are other areas where the 2-party system and its progressive, you might say, it's progressive surveillance and security state can be pushed back.
Huge checks that are changing people's lives. from coast to like Sean from Pittsburgh. In fact, he's on the phone.
Well, this is David Tullis. I do thank you for tuning into the program. We are at 92.7 FM, local economy, the free markets, brought to you by yournews.com, yournews.com. I'm the editor, and I'll be attending in God's providence today the city council meeting in which there will be discussed the panhandling ordinance by Burrs and Oglesby. Burrs and Oglesby wanting to clamp down on free speech rights in Chattanooga. So let's give them a fair hearing and hear what the defenders of this bill say. And probably the critics will be there again in numbers, as they have been for 3 or 4 weeks now. David Tullis, Nuke Radio. I've got some important announcements for you to listen to. Thank you.